Hello friends, Olive's here. It is officially what I would like to call in Southern California sweater season. Sweaters, shackets, if you will. Big shacket fan. Big shacket fan. Anyway, hi. If you're new here, I'm Steph. Welcome back to my channel. That was not the intro that I normally do, but we're gonna just go with it. So today we have another episode of Read It Down. It is the 10th episode of Read It Down. I don't think I've ever committed to an extracurricular activity in my life this well since doing sports in high school. So if you don't know what Read It Down is, it is a monthly series that I do on my channel where I have one of my friends pick 2 books off of my physical TBR. And then I also get to pick 1 book off of my physical TBR because I am a mood reader and I have to read all 3 of these books in the month that they are given to me. So this month would be October. And if I don't read them by the end of the month, then I am on a book buying ban. If I'm honest with you, I have been on a book buying ban for a while, in part because of Read It Down, but also just because personally I'm challenging myself to spend less money in every aspect of my life. So I'm technically on a book buying ban till the end of the year. So I'm basically on a book buying ban as it is. Does that make this any less fun? No. Because like the challenge still stands. Can I read them in the month that they're given to me? So this month I am so excited because I have my friend Kim from Native Lady Book Warrior. I just love Kim. I've known Kim since I've started BookTube. You probably notice a trend. A lot of the people that I've asked to be on this Read It Down series, I've known them from the beginning times of BookTube for me. And actually I think Kim and I started at similar times. She might have been on like maybe a year longer than me, but we've started similar times on BookTube, and she is someone that I talk to regularly. We've buddy read so many books together and like FaceTimed about them, and I just love her content. I love her energy. She is just the most delightful person. Like she is a ball of sunshine, and I just really love Kim. And I'm so thankful that she agreed to be on Read It Down, especially because I'm excited to see what she picks for me. We have very similar taste, I feel, especially in the horror genre. And also Kim is an Indigenous booktuber, and so she reads a lot of Indigenous literature, and she always inspires me to read more Indigenous literature, and I get so many recommendations from her, both Indigenous literature and just like amazing fantasy and horror recommendations. So I highly recommend stopping this video and going over to Kim's and subscribing, watching a video. She has really great content. So I'm just very excited for this Read It Down. That being said, I have no idea what Kim's gonna pick. I have 2 guesses. So the 2 that I went with, one of them is because we had talked in depth about maybe buddy reading this book, and that is The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. So she actually so kindly gifted me this book, and so I wasn't sure if she would choose The Sentence or The Night Watchman, but I just had a feeling that it might be The Night Watchman. And then the second book that came to mind was Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson, mainly because Kim also reads a lot of fantasy, and I feel like she might pick a fantasy book. And I've also kind of talked to her about how I really want to read Son of a Trickster, so if she remembers that, she might potentially pick it for me. I don't really know, but let's find out what Kim picked for me. But first, let's change my battery.
Hi Stephanie, Kim here. So I hope you are doing awesome, and I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for reaching out to me to pick 2 books to knock down your TBR a little bit. I'm so excited. So everyone, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kim, and my channel is Native Lady Book Warrior. Most of the time I read QT BIPOC books, most of the time Indigenous reads, because I am an Indigenous booktuber. So okay, let's get to it. So I have 2 recommendations for you and your bookshelf. I wanted to pick like 20 books, but yeah, I held back and was like, okay, Kim, just pick 2 books. All right, so the first book that I picked is a graphic novel anthology series, and well, not series, but graphic novel. This has like, I think 6 to 9 stories. I can't remember what, but it's called This Place, 100 Years Retold. And this is a huge recommended read. So I actually found this read through Thunderbird Woman Reads, through her BookTube channel and also her Instagram, and I saw this on there and I wanted it immediately. So I highly recommend this book. I had such a good time with it. I'm actually rereading it right now. When did I buy this? I don't remember. Sometime this year. I bought it from Red Planet Bookstore, which is an Indigenous owned bookstore. So the art in here is so amazing. There's just like a whole bunch of different artists within this book, and also authors. Authors I probably want to shout out to you are David A. Robertson, Kateria Akiwenzi Dam, Richard Van Camp, and also one of my favorites, Katharina Vermette. So Katharina Vermette is a favorite author of mine. She wrote The Strangers, and also a book that I highly recommend, which is called The Brick. So yes. So this is my first recommended read to you. I hope you enjoy it so much, and I'm gonna go get the second, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So the second read that I highly recommend to you for you to read to knock down that TBR is Love After the End, an anthology of Two-spirt and indigiqueer speculative fiction that is edited by the Joshua Whitehead. So yes, Joshua Whitehead, who wrote Johnny Appleseed, which also I extremely loved. But this book, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I know you love speculative fiction and sci-fi and fantasy. So this is a collection, anthology of indigiqueer stories, or Two-spirt stories as well. Authors include, Darcy Little Badger, Nathan Adler was a really awesome story that I liked. And I think, who's the other person that I really like the story from in here? But let's see, Darcy Little Badger, Nathan, Adam Garnett Jones, and with a really amazing introduction by Joshua Whitehead. So I highly recommend this read too. I hope you enjoy this. This is probably one of my favorite reads of the year. I was introduced to this read, I believe, who was it? I can't remember which Indigenous bookstagrammer had this on their bookstagram. I think it was a couple years ago, and I wanted it so bad, but I think I just barely got this last year or this year, and I read it in Erin's library, who's also an Indigenous reviewer, and also Danny from the Nuremberg Woman Reads. They have a book club called the Indigenous Reading Circle that's open to all, and I think we all read this together, and it was so amazing. So I know that you're gonna have so much fun reading these books, but I also have a alternate recommendation, which is that I saw on your bookshelf, which is The Remove by Brandon Robertson. And you know what? I highly recommend the audiobook. The audiobook was so good. I think I found the audiobook, I believe, on my Libby or Hoopla. I cannot remember which, but I think I reviewed this book a while ago, and if you're not feeling those first two reads, or you want to challenge yourself with a third Indigenous read, then I also recommend The Remove by Brendan Hobson. Such an amazing book. It brought me to tears, honestly, and it is such an amazing read with a mix of Indigenous contemporary fiction and also historical, cultural, prose mixed in there, which is pretty, and the audiobook just brings that so well together, I believe. So if you are feeling like an audiobook to include, this is my third alternate. So okay, I'm gonna go away now. I love you, Steph, and I miss you, and I hope you have much fun bringing down this TBR. You can do it. I believe in you. So Nongbita, have fun, and I shall see you later. Bye.
Do you see what I mean? She's a ball of sunshine. Okay, so these are the 3 books that she recommended to me. So it's funny because the 2 books that she recommended, like first and foremost, are anthologies. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before. I know that Rachel also picked a short story collection in another Read It Down, and I've probably said it 1,000 times. I don't read a lot of short story collections. It's mainly because every time I've tried, I kind of feel like things feel the same throughout them. I don't know. But a lot of the short story collections that I've tried to read have been all from the same author. And so I'm really excited about this, especially because this graphic novel, I've had it on my TBR for a while, but I just more recently bought it. And I love graphic novels. I really just appreciate that medium so much, especially YA ones, but I'm very, very excited to read an anthology in a graphic novel form, which is partially why I own this, but also because it's been highly, highly recommended, and there's a lot of authors in here that I've read from and enjoyed. And then Love After the End, another situation where I got it mainly because it is speculative fiction, and I haven't read a lot of short story collections that are like sci-fi, fantasy, speculative fiction, and it has a few authors in here that I've read from and I really loved. Also, it's a little bit shorter, so I felt like it wasn't as big of a commitment. So I am really excited to try these two because I don't gravitate towards short stories, or I guess anthology collections. That being said, I actually have this on my TBR for November, so I might as well just read it this month. So this will be something that I read. I don't normally read 3 books that are selected for me, but this is already on my TBR for next month. I have been planning on reading it for a while, so why not do it now? So I just finished the first story in this place and I'm already loving it. One of the things that I especially am enjoying in this collection, even though I've only just read the first story, but I did just read the second introduction, so that's why I wanted to talk about this. In every introduction to a new story, there's this section. And so the section is like the author's introduction to the story, probably giving the inspiration to the story. So in the last story, Catherine Vermette actually talked about like the inspiration, the historical inspiration for the main character. And so in this one, our author, Sonia Su, has given us inspiration for this story, which was based off of his grandfather's or great-grandfather's regalia that he got to try on. And then there's a timeline, like a historical timeline, which matches with when the story is taking place, because this is supposed to be 150 years of history retold through an Indigenous lens. Specifically, this is in Canada, but this one is the start of smallpox and the gold rush. So yeah, I just really love the addition of the historical context and the timelines. Also, I don't know if every single one, because obviously I haven't read them all, but so far these two have different artists. So I'm curious if every single story has a different artist attached to it, because I showed you the art for the last one. And in this one, the art is like this, which reminds me so much of Paper Girls, just the colors and kind of the art style. So I'm excited to see the different art styles and if these all have different artists attached to each story. Hello, good morning. So last night I finished This Place 150 Years Retold, and I really loved this. I would give this 5 out of 5 stars. It's a short story collection in graphic novel form, and it's going through history. Like I showed you in the beginning, each new story has a section like this, and the section kind of tells the inspiration of the story, and then it goes through a timeline of history. And so a lot of times these authors are taking pieces of real history that happened in whatever time frame that they're choosing to write in, because obviously it's 150 years retold, so each year is getting closer and closer to modern time. And so each author has chosen, I'm assuming, or maybe they were assigned to a specific time period, and they've picked something out of that time period and made a short story about it. So each one is very different. They're dealing with very different historical events, but like it all comes down to the same issue of land back, colonization of white people forcing indigenous people to assimilate and trying to erase their language and culture and practices and beliefs. So that's the running theme through this entire short story collection. And what's really cool about it is that each of the authors are drawing from different indigenous cultures and tribes and practices. So you're seeing so many different types of stories and storytelling in here, and I just really love that aspect of it. Also, it's cool because there are quite a few authors in here that I've read from before, and it was fun seeing their graphic novel adaptations and their stories in that way. And there's different artists in here as well. So each story has a different artist and the style is a little bit different, and I love seeing that too, because there were some styles that I just didn't love, but I appreciated them. And then there were some styles that were like very much what I love in a graphic novel and like look for art wise. I think this is one of those books that's like a must read. And I think that a lot of kids in high school and even junior high would really benefit from having something like this as an assigned reading. It's actually sometimes frustrating that books like this exist and don't get assigned as reading, because to me this is such an interesting way to talk about history, because you get the historical context from the very beginning introduction page where it's telling you all of these really major historical moments, mainly in Canada. This is in Canada. Obviously I live in the US, so it's a little bit different, but historical moments in Canadian history. And then this author is taking a piece of that and making oftentimes a fictionalized story of that time period. It's just a really creative and engaging way to talk about history. But I wanted to take you through my favorites in this collection. Even though I really loved most all of the stories, I do have a few favorites that like stuck out to me. So I loved Annie of Red River. That was a really fun one, especially the way that it ended. Red Clouds was another one that I just really loved the story, and it was like kind of on the cusp of horror-ish. I really loved Nimki. This one made me cry. This one very much covers residential schools, the outcome of residential schools, where a lot of children are being taken away from their families and put into foster homes, and what that has done generationally. I also really liked Like a Razor Slash, because this definitely talks about the impacts of pipelines. I actually really like this descriptor here. It says, some dismiss the impact of a pipeline, saying it would be like a thread stretched across a football field. Those close to the land said the impact would be more like a razor slash across the Mona Lisa. I also really liked We Remember It, which is about the raids of 1981, where the 1752 Peace and Friendship Treaty was broken. And this author even talks about how, doing research into this story, they found there were many smaller raids in the 70s that led to something called the Salmon Wars. And this is actually something we're seeing today in Alaska. And then lastly, I'm sure I'm saying this wrong, it is Kittiskinaw. And this one is supposed to be a futuristic story. It's a future shaped by Indigenous peoples, a future in which the ways we relate to one another are fundamentally transformed. The author goes on to write, this chapter is a love letter to my ancestors and my descendants. It is a refusal to lose hope and a denial of oblivion. Indigenous peoples will continue to exist into the near and far future. We need space and time to imagine our relationships branching out, growing in spite of severance, becoming more firmly rooted and nourished. We can do that work wherever we are, in our communities, in the academy, at the bedsides of our babies who demand just one more story. I'm so happy that I read this collection. I actually haven't had it that long. I bought it, I think, in April, and so I'm glad to have finally gotten to it. I'm glad that Kim picked it, because this is by far one of my favorite reads of the year, and I feel like I'll be revisiting it time and time again. It's also exciting because there are some authors in here that I've never read from before, and so I'm going to be looking up their backlists. I know there's one author in here who has a comic. Brandon Mitchell is the founder of Birch Bark Comics and creator of the Sacred Circles comic series. So yeah, I don't know if I said it, but this is absolutely a 5 stars. Hello, I'm here not for any particular reason except to show you that I got to wear a sweater today, because it's finally cooling down. Do you hear the wind? Do you hear the breeze? It's finally fall weather here in California. I'm so happy. And that's all I had to say.
stories that I've told, and many secrets that I hold. Not ready to see the truth unfold. Didn't know that time could go so slow. If only I just listened to your warnings. You told me that my foolishness had consequences.
I didn't really talk about it, but I ended up starting and finishing The Removed by Brandon Hobson, and I read this in like one sitting, so I didn't have any updates because this was like compulsively readable to me, and it's not that long, so I listened to the audiobook in one sitting on like a Friday. I don't know, it's been a few days since I've read this. The exploration of grief in here and the depiction of grief was so like close to home that it just, I don't know, this really resonated with me in so many ways. Basically, you're following the Achota family, and in the beginning of the story, you are meeting the Achota family 10 years after they lost their son Ray Ray to a police shooting. And so every single year they have this bonfire in memory of him, and the whole family gets together, even though the family is pretty broken up at this point in time. And so you meet them a week or so before this bonfire is about to happen, and you get to go from perspective to perspective of each family member in the story. So the first perspective that you meet is Ray Ray's mom, Maria, and she's taking care of her husband and Ray Ray's dad, Ernest, because he has been struggling with the onset of Alzheimer's. You also follow their daughter, Sonia, and Sonia kind of lives a life of solitude in a way, but she also likes to date younger men or just random men that she finds very fascinating from afar, and then she kind of gets with them and sort of gets over it type of thing. And then you follow their youngest son, Edgar, and Edgar is dealing with drug addiction, and so he's been on and off drugs since the death of his brother, and at this point you meet him where he's relapsing. But in the midst of all of this and leading up to the bonfire, Maria, who used to be kind of a social worker, gets a call asking if she would foster a young Cherokee boy because they're the only remaining Cherokee family in this location. And so when Maria finds out that the boy is the same age as Ray Ray when Ray Ray passed away, she agrees because she thinks that it would be really good for her and Ernest to have somebody in the house that sort of is a reminder of Ray Ray in that way. So they agree to it, and when this boy comes into the house, it starts to change a lot of things for Ernest and Maria in a very positive way. And on the outskirts of that, you're still following Sonia and Edgar before they really even meet this little boy and coming up to the bonfire. And Edgar's perspective is very bizarre, and I think that that was purposeful based off of the relapsing and the drug use. It felt very surreal, and you don't quite know what's going on in the beginning when you're in his perspective, and how we got to this place called the Darkening Land. And the things that happen in that perspective are I don't even know how to explain it. It just made me feel some type of way when I was reading Edgar's perspective. But some of my favorite parts of this book were actually with Maria, Ernest, and the foster child Wyatt, because their relationship was very sweet and he took to them very quickly, and he was such an interesting character in general, just because of what he represented in their life and potentially as a whole what he represented in this book. I think that was really what sucked me in, is just this character Wyatt and his relationship to these people. But further, what I think makes this book so impactful, and I'm not sure if it'll be impactful for everybody, but I think what made it so impactful for me is that it's really showing that even 10 years later, the grief of losing somebody, especially in such a tragic way, doesn't just go away. And I think there's this misconception with grief that you just get over it, that you move on, and you don't move on. You know, you just move forward and you continue on with that grief, and sometimes that grief gets smaller, but sometimes it overwhelms you, and it could be very unexpected and out of nowhere. Something reminds you of that person, something brings you back to a certain time, and your grief becomes overwhelming. It's not something that just like shrinks over time and eventually goes away. Like, There are moments in my life where my grief is very small and very big and loud. There are times when I think that I'm going to react to something in a specific way based off of where my grief stems from, and it just doesn't go the way that I think it's going to go. But I especially think that the grief is very prevalent here because they're coming up on an anniversary of their son dying. And it's a pretty big anniversary. It's 10 years. And so I think that the grief is even more palpable in here, especially with Wyatt coming into their life. It's just always really cathartic sometimes for me to read grief books, but especially grief books that are at different stages in people's grieving. So like a big 10-year anniversary is something that I'm very much close to right now. It's just funny how books fall into your lap at certain times when you need them. And like, I'm not saying that this book is gonna hit the same for everybody, but I think that if you need a book that's exploring grief, because it's kind of cathartic to explore grief, I think that's one thing that people find to be taboo, is that we don't want to talk about grief and like death especially, but it's all around us. It's like it's the one inevitable thing in your life, to be born and to die. I find that I connect really deeply to grief books. Anyway, this was great. I gave it 4 stars. I do wish I had a little bit more from the ending, but I still really appreciated this book, and I'm excited to read Where the Dead Sit Talking, which is Brandon Hobson's other book. It's a National Book Award finalist. I don't know if that was his first book, to be honest. Thank you, Kim, for pushing this on me. I think the other thing that I got lost in the weeds talking about grief that I didn't touch on for this book. There is a big theme of injustice in here, especially because Ray Ray did die from a police shooting. And I also think that's just like a prevalent part of how they're grieving, and the grieving process being even more difficult, and the conversation of grief and injustice being intertwined, and how this family has had to move forward is done so well. And I think also with Wyatt, the foster child, coming into their life at this occasion of 10 years, still having no justice for Ray Ray, was a very special healing moment in this book. And I really appreciated that there is that reprieve of having a healing moment for this family, because you can tell, even just meeting them 10 years after this situation has happened with Ray Ray, that like there still hasn't been a lot of healing moments for them as a family, especially with everything that's going on with Ernest and their son Edgar. So it was really nice to have this character Wyatt come in, and you get to meet them at this time of hopefully major healing. But like I said, the ending, I wish I got a little bit more, but I completely understand why authors sometimes end stories like this the way that they do. Abruptly. Hello, we're in bad lighting once again because it's dark. It is Thursday, which is my Friday, and I just got home from work like 30 or 40 minutes ago. I went to the store before I came home and got some food, and I don't know why, but today, like at work, I was writing out this list of what I wanted to do for the next 3 days, like all of the things that I wanted to get done. And then I also decided that I wanted to try to like do time blocking for certain things to see if like it makes me a little more productive when I'm not at work, because I am the least productive when I'm not at work. You know, I love to lounge. I'm a woman of leisure, if you will. And so I was like, what if I start time blocking some of my like reading and working out and like eating, which is such a weird thing to say, but I'm so bad at making myself lunch, for example. I hate coming up with food for lunch because I never know what I'm going to be in the mood for, and oftentimes I get random lunches. So I was like, what if I block off some time in my mornings to make some lunch and just like deal with it, you know? And the reason for this is because I get morning scaries. So people talk about Sunday scaries. I just generally get morning scaries. And so I'm seeing if like blocking out time and like scheduling my mornings a little bit, or like making them a little more structured, will help me take my mind off of morning scaries. I don't really know if that's gonna help, but anyway, doing that made me feel very productive. So I just started some laundry, which I don't normally do laundry at night. It's always in the morning. And I started cleaning my kitchen, which is a new thing I've been doing, because normally Fridays are my cleaning days, right? But if I'm feeling kind of productive on a Thursday, I'll just start listening to an audiobook and start cleaning my kitchen, because I hate cleaning the kitchen. So if I start deep cleaning that on Thursday night, then in the morning it's like a quick little clean of the kitchen, and then I can focus on the rest of the house, which I don't mind cleaning as much as the kitchen. I just don't like cleaning our kitchen specifically for certain reasons. And honestly, I'm just like in the groove of reading right now, so I wanted to update you because I'm halfway through Love After the End. I'm halfway through in terms of how many stories are in here versus how many I've read. And I have said before many times that I'm not somebody who gravitates towards short story collections, but I'm loving this. There are a few that I've just felt are an average 3 stars, but the majority of these are 4 or 5 stars, which makes me think that this is going to be like a solid 4-star collection. And I always have trouble finishing short story collections, but I'm actually really excited to read the rest of this because there's a few authors that I'm really anticipating reading from. I need to look at the table of contents. What you doing? She gets really upset when she can't get on my lap, and so she'll just yell at me. So anyway, the authors that I have left, there's 2 that I've read from before, and the first one is Darcy Little Badger, who wrote Elatsoe and A Snake Falls to Earth. And then there's David A. Robertson, which I cannot remember what they wrote, but I've read something by that author and I really enjoyed it. So I'm excited to finish this. It's really cool to think that I got 2 short story collections as the Read It Down picks, and I've loved both of them, or I think that I'll love both of them. I finished Love After the End last night. Like I said, I only had like 3 more stories left, and I will say that the latter half of this collection is the strongest part of the collection. Like, those were my 3 favorite stories for sure, and Darcy Little Badger did not disappoint. Like, the last 3 stories were 5-star reads for me, so I feel like this is overall like a 4-star anthology. And I know there's another anthology that's edited by Joshua Whitehead that I actually think comes before this one. I actually don't think this one was edited by Joshua Whitehead. Let me see. Yeah, they're not on here, but you know who is? Sherry Dimeline, David Robertson, Richard Van Camp. So this one's called Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, an LGBT and Two-Spirit sci-fi anthology. But yeah, both of them are supposed to be speculative fiction anthologies that are exploring being queer or two-spirit. And I believe in this one, all of the authors are from across Turtle Island. I really love the blurb for this book, so I'm going to read you a part of it. It says, "These visionary authors show how queer Indigenous communities can bloom and thrive through utopian narratives that detail the vivacity and enduring strength of 2SQ-ness throughout its plight in the maw of settler colonialism histories. Readers will discover bioengineered AI rats, transplanted trees in space, the rise of a 2SQ resistance camp, a primer on how to survive indigiqueerly, virtual reality applications, motherships at sea, and the very blending of space-time continuums queered through Indian time. Love After the End demonstrates the imaginatively queer two-spirit futurism we have been dreaming of since 1492. So I wanted to tell you what my favorite stories in here were. So obviously my number 1 favorite story is Story for a Bottle by Darcy Little Badger. I absolutely love Darcy Little Badger. Elatsoe is one of those books that holds a very special place in my heart. I have yet to read A Snake Falls to Earth, shamefully, but hopefully I'll be reading that soon. So I loved that story. I loved Seed Children by Marie Curisato, Nameless by Nazba Tom, and Eloise by David A. Robertson. Those were definitely my favorite stories out of this entire collection, but I also really like How to Survive the Apocalypse for Native Girls by Kai Minosh Pyle. And there are 10 stories in here, so 5 of them being 5 stars. This is just like what I've been waiting for, because like I said, short stories and anthologies aren't something I gravitate towards. So I'm really excited that I can come back to this anthology, because I definitely can see myself rereading this. And hopefully the stories that were like 3 and 4 stars, when I reread them, maybe they'll have a different impact on me the second time around. And I'm very excited that Love, Time, and Space, that one, Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, is on Kindle Unlimited, because I'm probably gonna sit down and maybe read the first story after I finish filming this, because I'm in the zone, you know? So now I have to consult the list of everybody's ratings, because if we look back, Kim got a 5 and a 4 star, which actually I know puts her at the top. I just don't remember if she is now above Yasmin, which I don't think so, because I think I gave Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings a 4.5. Actually, Kim is right below Robin, because Robin got a 4.5 and a 5-star read, and Yasmin got a 4.5 and a 5-star read, so they are tied. So Kim is right below Robin. So Kim is right below Robin right now, which I think would be 4th place, because Erin is number 1. I want to thank Kim so much again for participating in Read It Down. I just enjoy talking with her and knowing her, and so I hope that you go over and subscribe and watch her content and participate in the SKODEN Readathon, which is happening in November. She has all of the information not only on her channel, but also on her Instagram. She has highlights on her page, so you should definitely check that out. I will be having some reading sprints. She will be having a bunch of reading sprints on her channel, but also other booktubers will be having reading sprints on their channels as well. So I will link that all down below. Everything will be down below, so you can easily find all of the information and participate. By the time this goes up, it's probably going to be like 2 weeks into November-ish, maybe, but you still can participate because it's a month long, you know? And you don't have to start from the beginning of a readathon to participate in a month-long readathon, because like I don't know that I've ever successfully participated in a month-long readathon. You didn't have to start at the beginning of the month. You still have 2 or 3 weeks left of the month to get in the read. It's a bingo board, so you only have to read a certain amount to get the bingo. So it's not, you don't need the whole month, just participate. Anyway, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please leave a mountain or a cloud emoji, or both, whichever one. If you made it this far and you have nothing to say, because there's like a little mountain back there, there's really pretty clouds up here. I love this cover, by the way. But yeah, leave a cloud or a mountain emoji down below if you have nothing to say and you've made it this far, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.